Hi, I'm Dan Brenton. Welcome to the Connection Podcast. This is the second of a two-part series where we are talking with Dave Pedley, CEO of the GWP Group, a privately owned UK-based packaging producer. Today we're going to look at ways in which an owner can successfully exit their business. So Dave, let's start off by having a look at some of the mechanisms with which we effectively transition out of a business. Maybe you could explain some of the options that owners have got.
I mean, it takes an amount of courage to take that leap out of the business, but you're not sort of deciding on one day you're going to leave the business and get on with it. You know, this was a process over probably 4 or 5 years of talking to these people and being honest with them about what your plans are. But sort of going back to a point I made earlier, you can't really do it in a half-hearted way, because if you give somebody responsibility, as you know, and you then jump back in and override their decisions, those key members of staff will very quickly become disenfranchised. So for me, that was always an obvious plan. You get the sort of other opportunity that somebody decides they're going to sell their business and then retrospectively try and build a succession plan and put in a second tier team. Well, that obviously entails an even greater level of trust, because you're putting a lot of responsibility with people that you don't necessarily know that well, and you certainly don't know how well they operate under those circumstances. So there are lots of different ways to cut it up, but it really does come back to the quality of the team that you've got behind you.
So from what you're saying, Dave, there's effectively 3 ways in which you can exit a business. You can either stay in place and effectively run the business as a cash cow forever. You can implement a straight sale to another company. Or alternatively, the third option, you put in a strong management team that allows you to draw from that business all the time, having stepped back from the day-to-day operations. How do you feel independents should be assessing that transition period?
I think that in the case of a straightforward sale, any potential acquirer is going to be looking at that business and how that business is going to perform and function without you there. As a sort of owner proprietor. So they are going to have 2 options. They're either going to lock you in for a very protracted period to make sure they've got that continuity, or they're going to look very, very closely at your second tier management team, and you need to make sure that you've got some very competent people there. But inevitably, they will be adjusting the value relative to the potential of you staying with that business. And I guess they're going to always be cautious that you won't necessarily be highly motivated during a sort of transition or an earn-out period.
That covers obviously just a straightforward sale, Dave. What about the second option, where you continue to allow the business to run and you just run it as a cash cow?
I mean, I think in today's environment, that's potentially can be more lucrative than an outright trade sale. I mean, money in the bank these days is not worth very much at all. So if you do have a sort of strong cash generative business, then that's got to be a viable alternative. Again, though, the important thing is that if you are intending to take a step back, that you've got a team that you can trust to keep that business growing and generating cash.
And of course, then the final option, Dave, is the 3 to 5 year build phase, where you put the management team in, you empower them, incentivize them to help you grow the business, but with you effectively taking a backward step. Do you think this is the best way forward?
Well, I believe that is the best option, and it's going to depend very much on the individual. And some people quite genuinely love their involvement in their business so much that, you know, why would they want to take time out of it? Because, you know, that's what they really enjoy doing, and you know, I completely respect that point of view. I've got loads of interests outside of work. You know, never really got enough time to do any of it properly. And certainly the only way I was ever going to achieve my dream of sailing around the world was to actually take some real time out of the business. But in doing so, I think I've achieved a situation where, I've got a fantastically well-run, managed business that gets on really, really well without me. I've got a lot invested in that business still, but actually I've managed to engineer a situation where I'm financially independent from the business. So that's it's a great carrot further down the road. But actually, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now. If it never happens, so it's a nice position to be in, and I'd strongly advocate it.
So obviously, Dave, you've proved that you've got a good management team in place, but how do you incentivize them to keep them on board and keep them growing your business?
I think the reward has to be a life-changing amount of money. I think if you try and incentivize somebody with a bonus that, even if it relates to 6 months salary or 12 months salary, when the chips are down, and times are tough, and somebody comes along and offers them a better job, and that's an opportunity to take all this pressure off their shoulders. Are they going to jump ship for 6 months salary? Or are they going to dig in and go for the long game? And that reward has to be sufficient to make them stick with the business. So that's going to be different for different people. So, there will be a layer of management that, maybe 12 months worth of salary would do that. But then there will be other people that will need significantly more than that. I've taken the view that as long as I retained a controlling interest in the business, then I'm happy to share, the upside of the rest of that equity with the rest of the team. But that will be different for every individual.
Now, this actually brings out quite an interesting conundrum that you're going to face, I guess, because obviously you've now got additional shareholders within your business. And that could potentially impact on the investment strategies for the business as you move forward. How do you deal with that particular situation?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you talk to any production manager in a sheep plant and ask them, what would be their absolute panacea, and I can guarantee they'll be spending £3 to £5 million over the next 3 years. If that same person is thinking, well, actually, if we can increase our profit by 10 to 15% next year, then my share of equity or my bonus or share options are going to increase in value dramatically, then that makes them be far more considerate and calculating in those investment decisions. And that's the same in all aspects of the business. And they're far more professional in the way that they look at those decisions.
So Dave, you've got a fully engaged, empowered management team in place, but as the owner, how do you handle the process in terms of reporting? Because obviously you don't want to be seen to be niggling in day-to-day affairs. So how did you affect that transition, but still have the visibility to ensure that the business was growing the way that you needed it to?
Yeah, it's a very important point, and I think the crux of it is to have that process formalised, but concise. So again, everybody's going to have a slightly different perspective on this, but for me, I'd like to see sort of one A4 sheet of information, maybe every 2 weeks, and to just cover very specific categories. Obviously, financial performance is a key one, and within our business we've got a sort of a matrix of key financial information that we work with anyway, that everybody understands. So I just want to see those headline numbers, so I can see if something's going slightly adrift, and I can then go back and drill down and question people. But I don't want to be all over them all of the time, as you say, asking niggling questions. So, but it's also important that I don't have to go back and ask for that information. So that's something that is a sort of contract between me and the management team. And I think that's a really important element of being able to be at arm's length from the company and be comfortable that you are still informed.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Dave. This has been a really fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed listening to all of your thoughts and ideas on how to successfully produce an exit strategy for a private business owner. I've picked up a few hints along the way as well, which has been fantastic. So for those of you who've been listening, I hope you found this interesting and useful. Be sure to check out the Connection app, and you will be able to keep up with the series of podcasts that we'll be recording over the coming months and years. So until next time, thanks very much. Bye-bye.